The Kawhi Leonard situation takes another turn as the NBA opens their investigation. I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe right here to the channel. Turn on those notifications as well. Joining me is Donnie Freeman. Donnie, we had an eventful day yesterday with the bombshell news about Kawhi Leonard, his involvement potentially with some extra money landing in his hands, and now here we are with word that it's even more than we initially thought. This is pretty wild for the beginning of September. This is wild for any time, but for the beginning of September around the NBA, this is absolutely insane.
I like blame you wholeheartedly because
Why?
all you did was complain about August and the lack of stories.
Oh, how much I hate August.
And so we enter September with crazy stuff like this and some free agency stuff. So I blame you, or I thank you, I guess.
I mean, I would say thank. I'd rather have stuff to talk about than not. But John Corrales said Kawhi Leonard's aspiration deal, and this was the company that was reportedly paying Kawhi to be an ambassador, to advertise them, right? To be a pitch guy, and he never actually did any. From what we know, didn't actually do any work, so he just kind of got $28 million for doing nothing.
Well, he had a clause in there that says he doesn't have to do something if he doesn't want to do something. So he could literally get paid for nothing.
Like what? Like that should be shady enough, right? Like who puts a clause in there saying on any of your deliverables, you don't have to actually deliver on any of them and you will still get the money? Like who would do that? Would an NBA team sign a player to a contract that specifically says, we're going to sign you to this contract to play basketball, but you don't have to play basketball for us and you'll still get all your money? No, of course not.
Listening to the podcast, I heard that they would ask him this or that, and he just had full veto power and said, no, I don't feel like doing that. And he doesn't have to do it. And then he's just still getting paid. The only stipulation that would stop him from getting paid basically was if he left the Clippers. So,
which, I mean, as a team sponsor, that makes some, like, of course, they're going to want to keep the money and everything within the team and keep the team strong because of their name's going to be like, I think there's a lot of people look at that as like the smoking gun that, oh, if he's not a Clipper, then he doesn't get the money. And so very clearly he's getting paid for being a Clipper and getting paid for playing basketball. It doesn't help, but I don't think it's necessarily as, as dead set of a gotcha type thing as it could be. That said, there's a lot out here. So check this out. John Corrales reporting that the 28 million was actually 48 million, that there were stock endorsements that were coming. He was owed 20 million in stock. And he never got that, but he was owed that. And why this is interesting is because Steve Ballmer reportedly put in about 50 million into the company. So if you were trying to prove that essentially what happened was Kawhi Leonard was paid outside of the salary cap for being a basketball player, it was a little strange that Steve Ballmer reportedly put 50 million into the company and then Kawhi only got 28. Okay, what happened to the remaining $22 million? Like what? Why is that the case? Now it's, well, actually it was 48 million. That looks much worse. I think that suddenly looks worse. Like Ballmer kicked 50 million into this company. The company agrees to pay upwards of 48 million to Kawhi Leonard. To me, it looks even more fishy now after this.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely doesn't help, like we were talking about, but this just makes it look much worse. And, one of my favorite things about this is that, we get a story and then we get more people figuring out or chiming in more ways. Yeah. And you've got to know that there are more people that have some stuff that they just probably haven't put out or up to this point are going to figure out as well, that this is just going to keep on snowballing, right? And we're going to keep on hearing more and more about all of this and how it relates to Kawhi and the Clippers ultimately. And the Clippers did put out that release yesterday as they were supposed to, and saying that they basically had no wrongdoing. And it's if we want to be really technical, there's not anything wrong with a player getting paid for endorsements. That's pretty common.
No, players do that all the time.
That's very normal, right? I mean, they're on commercials. That's normal. But I think when you start to add all this stuff together, and it's where it starts to look like there's probably foul play here. And, with Kawhi, ultimately, I think it's pretty interesting that he's in a position where he says, I don't want to do these things, because like we were talking about, if he does come through on those deliverables, all of a sudden it looks like he's paid for work done. Now it just looks like he's just getting money for no reason. And then again, you have that clause in there where, oh, well, we'll stop paying you if X, Y, Z. So that's where it's really just questionable. Like we were mentioning earlier, why would an organization continue to pay you $7 million annually if you're not doing anything? And it would be one thing if they were like plastering his face all over the place, but
Exactly.
basically, and using his likeness, but they weren't. And like basically he wasn't really linked to this at all. Like they had other people come out, do commercials. He was pretty much not linked to this. He didn't retweet anything. He wasn't involved in this.
He hasn't done anything on Twitter in like a decade almost. But there's the one tweet from like 3 years ago or something where the Clippers put it out saying that for Kawhi's birthday, every retweet or whatever aspiration would plant a tree. I think that's it. That's all that's come out so far.
Aspiration, by the way,
and it's the wrong account.
It's not even, somebody else claimed that app, by the way, or it's the wrong account. So like it's weird. But yeah, there's no deliverables. There's not. So it just looks bad. And so how do you explain this, right? And ultimately, like we were talking about this too. If there is foul play here from Kawhi, like he knew he was doing something shady, I don't know why he would name it KL2 Aspire. Like I'm naming that
the company, the LLC that he created.
LLC.
Yeah,
I'm naming that like something insane, like
Blue Harvest, right?
Like,
something like that.
There's no way you're linking that back to me, man. That is too straightforward. So it's a lot, man. It's a lot.
Let's take a look though at what the CBA actually says, because this is where there are, this was on Zach Lowe earlier. There was a conversation about like a lot of execs are saying like, no, the whole everybody does this thing doesn't really hold water, because not everybody does this, because if you read the actual clause in the CBA that says what you're not allowed to do, it sure sounds a hell of a lot like exactly what appears happened here. So let's get into that. I also want to take a look at Mark Cuban's response to all this, because I thought that was interesting. We're gonna get to that right after this. You've probably heard of the Sleeper app at this point, but here's a little secret. It's more than just a platform for season-long fantasy leagues. This year, millions of users are enjoying playing fantasy sports on Sleeper, but it also offers live stats, including real-time updates and visualization on all stats, a great news feed. I use this all the time. You get lightning-fast updates on your favorite players and teams, and a real-time chat where you can engage with other users about individual plays and performances during the NFL and NBA season. So you can download the #1 sports app today. Experience it for yourself. Sleeper, a great presenting sponsor here for the Basketball Bulletin. You can see I even made some picks on the Sleeper Picks platform here. I went with Dak Prescott to go over half a passing yard. That's kind of a free square. Love those little promos that they do. And then I've got Saquon Barkley, more than 96.5 rushing yards against the Cowboys. Oof, I don't know about that defense. And Kyron Williams, I believe he will get one into the end zone. So I've got more on him there. If you guys want to check it out, you can get a $100 deposit match up to $100 when you use our code Bulletin. Use the link in the description down below. All right, so check this out. This is the NBA CBA. It shall constitute a violation for a team to enter into an agreement or understanding with any sponsor or business partner or third party under which such sponsor, business partner, or third party pays or agrees to pay, even just agreeing to pay, compensation for basketball services. Well, if Kawhi didn't do anything for this company, what is he getting paid for? He's getting paid for being a Clipper. Wouldn't that be basketball services? Yes, they're invested in the Clippers. They were a sponsor of the Clippers, but wouldn't Kawhi then? This is just me. I'm not a lawyer. This is just me trying to use logic here. But if Kawhi did nothing for this company, aren't they effectively paying him because he is a basketball player, because he is a Clipper, and because they are a sponsor of the Clippers? Such an agreement with a sponsor or business partner or third party may be inferred where such compensation from the sponsor or business partner or third party is substantially in excess of the fair market value of any services to be rendered by the player or such partner or business sponsor. That sounds familiar too. How does, even if it wasn't really 48 million, even if it was just 28 million, nobody else was getting that kind of money from aspiration. Robert Downey Jr. wasn't getting that kind of money. He's a bigger star than Kawhi. It sure sounds like that would check that box that Kawhi was getting, even if Kawhi did like a a tweet for them or something like that, it sure sounds like he's getting substantially in excess of fair market value.
Yeah,
And
he's one of the biggest benefactors, if not the flat out biggest one from all of this.
And the compensation in the player contract between the player and the team is substantially below the fair market value of such contract. Kawhi took pay cuts for the Clippers. He took less than the max so they could do other stuff. Like, this does not look good, Donnie, for the Clippers. And I don't want it to be that way. I want this all to be untrue. I don't want to be in a situation, you and I, before we came on the air, we talked about Dirk Nowitzki and him taking a lot less, millions upon millions of dollars less to help out the Dallas Mavericks. My fear is that now, if this stuff all proves to be true, and this is all, the Clippers are guilty of everything that they are alleging is happening here, that from now on, anytime a player takes less, anytime a player maybe look, think about back in the day, back when LeBron and Bosh and Wade all signed with the Heat, and they left extra money on the table to sign, what was it, Udonis Haslem and like Mike Miller. Anytime that kind of stuff happens, the players will immediately be looked at with suspicion.
Yeah.
And I think that is what I don't want to see happen. And I think that's where this is ultimately heading. But when you read through this, and this is in the CBA, this again, innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah, for sure.
I think a lot of people are just assuming they're guilty already. But based on what we've heard so far, this sure sounds a heck of a lot like what's going on here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're not guilty until the NBA concludes their investigation and finds them guilty, because they've investigated them for similar things before in the past. So there may or may not have something that comes to light as a result of all of this. And if nothing happens, I mean, just similarly to like the Beasley stuff, we're going to look at it and say, oh, nothing happened, so we'll just keep moving on. Right. You brought up Dirk. And I just did a quick search here, and there's an estimate from Business Insider. He gave up $194 million in pay cuts over his career. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And somebody said, wouldn't you give him a check of $194 million? And then the first reply is no, because that's how you lose like 10 first-round picks. And that I thought was pretty funny, because that's something that's pretty talked about with the Joe stuff previously, right? So, and it's not because I think anything specific happened there, of course. It's just I don't know that everybody does this specifically, but I don't think everybody's clean either. I think there are, and I think that's pretty straightforward. When you're in business, this is something that I think is pretty widespread, and they find ways to do things all the time to get stuff done, right? And I'm sure you can point to a number of different things. I mean, Tori's saying he's investigating Jalen Brunson for the contract he signed.
He hinted at maybe doing that.
Maybe doing it. Yeah. So like, I think you could find a bunch of stuff, and that's a whole rabbit hole, because you could go down a lot of different conspiracies. But when it comes to this type of stuff with money, I mean, when they were investigated last time, Silver said that circumvention of the salary cap is something he views as a cardinal sin. And so you would expect him, if that wording is true, you would expect him to drop the hammer. I think people don't give him enough credit. I know that he's not as stern, pun intended. But I think people act like he's just a pushover. I think with something like this, he would do the utmost that he could, because of the ramifications of this. You have to make an example out of the Clippers.
Yes.
If other teams are even thinking about doing something like this, you need to make an example. And so this could be really bad. There's so many different possible outcomes, but equally there's a chance out there that nothing happens, like we talked about.
Well, and we have to remember Adam Silver works for NBA owners, and it's not the other way around. So what do the other owners think of this situation? Are there other owners who maybe have done things that are not on the up and up, perhaps, and maybe they don't, they don't want that stuff. But at the same time, there's a lot of NBA owners too, who, the new collective bargaining agreement came in, and the whole thing is to try to level the playing field to some degree, so teams can't just spend their way to a championship. And specifically, everybody's going to turn and look at Ballmer, because he has, I mean, many times more money than anyone else in the NBA. I don't know. In fact,
I think he's a top 6 richest person in the world.
I mean, I think he may have, I don't know how many team owners you would have to stack up
to get to him,
to get to Bomber. Like, but that's how much more. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
Like that's how much more money he's got. Like you would have to stack up a bunch of owners to get to Bombers, but like it's hard to even fathom how much money he has. Essentially, he has infinity money, right? Like that's will never run out. It's like he punched in the cheat code.
Yeah. 6th to 8th net worth 160 to 180 billion
with a B.
Get out of it. And that's just the guys, I'm sure there's some guys we don't know of that are got much more money than that.
So think about that. I mean, his net worth, if the Lakers just came in at an insane valuation, everybody is shocked. 10 billion. He could buy 16 Lakers, like with his net worth. That's more. He could buy the whole league essentially, right? I mean, if we were to add up the valuation of every franchise, Steve Ballmer would have enough money to buy every single. If he liquidated his entire net worth, like that's
just net worth. He could potentially have more than that. He could potentially have less than that. But he's got a lot of money. The other guys don't compare to that, right?
But so the point is, like, if you are one of the smaller markets, if you're one of the teams that has an owner that doesn't have that money cheat code turned on, you're probably going to want the book thrown at them here. You're going to want a stiff punishment here because you want an environment where the advantages for Ballmer's billions are mitigated. There will always be some advantage. There's no getting rid of that. But can you make it so a team can't just spend their way to a title? And if there are loopholes, if there are ways, underhanded though they may be, to funnel money to players outside of the salary cap system, well, that is going to put these super deep-pocketed owners at a major advantage over the non-deep-pocketed owners, relatively speaking. Of course, these people are all ridiculously wealthy, but that's where I could see, like, as much as we say, well, there's owners who wouldn't want to see the Ballmer get in too much trouble. I think there's a number who would say, oh no, let's make the example here and let's make sure that we actually have a shot here and we're not going to have teams using their money in a nefarious way.
Yeah, I was hearing last night that Amick, who did reporting on this last time they were investigated, heard that he was saying that even back then, there were people that were mad at the Clippers way back in 2019. And ultimately, they were people in organizations that weren't fully clean, but they wouldn't mind, sounding the whistle on the Clippers, which speaks volumes to me. Like, that's insane. Like, at that time as well, 6-7 years ago, they're ready to blow the whistle on the Clippers, and their backyard's not even clean either, but they don't mind. So like that says a lot to me, man. And certainly also, like I said earlier, that also tells me that other organizations aren't clean and everything's not on the up and up. And so we can't do anything but wonder what else is really out there. But sure. I do think you have to make an example here.
There's levels to it. Like, for example, if you are, teams aren't supposed to communicate with free agents, with other teams' free agents.
Oh, everyone's doing that.
Yeah, you are behind, right? If you play by the rules on that, you're at a huge disadvantage. Yeah. And the problem is something like that, you can't really police that, right? Yeah. Especially when you get like remember the Chandler Parsons of the world? Like Chandler Parsons was running around, negotiating with everybody and recruiting and all that. It's part of the reason why he stayed in the NBA as long as he did, because he was such a good recruiter. Like, how do you police that? That's so difficult to police. So particularly we've got players talking to other players and all that kind of stuff. So are a lot of free agent deals and stuff reached ahead of time? Do teams technically bend the rules? Do they cheat there? Yeah. And frankly, they all do. And if you don't do it, you're at a huge competitive disadvantage. But that's a different situation. I think that something like that. This isn't just bending the rules. This is circumventing. This is sidestepping the entire system. And that's where the one hand, you've got the NBA who kind of turns a blind eye to that stuff as long as teams aren't throwing it in their face when it comes to negotiating with free agents. Going around the entire system like this, I think Adam Silver's going to come down with the hammer of Thor, right? I mean, this is going to be, it has to, because if he doesn't now, he's going to create a lot more problems later. And I hope it's not the case, if this turns out to be true. Now, by the way, Mark Cuban said he doesn't think he's on Team Ballmer. He put this out on X. Now, he did apparently it has not been released yet, but went on a podcast with Pablo Torre after kind of calling him out here. So I'm curious to see what, did he get convinced? What happened on that show? He said they talked for 3 hours, so we'll see what that looks like. But he said, as much as I wish they circumvented the salary cap, Mark Cuban's like, I want to get these guys. He said, Steve isn't that dumb. If he did try to feed Kawhi Leonard money, why would he let the company go bankrupt? Why would he ever, if he has infinity money himself, why wouldn't he just continue to prop up this aspiration company? And essentially, this is what Mark Cuban points the finger at aspiration, just as the Clippers in their release did. Instead of pointing the finger at the Clippers, the finger is getting pointed at aspiration, saying it was them that were in the wrong here, not the Clippers organization.
That's actually true though. The thing about all this is that we are so focused on the Kawhi Clipper thing of it all, because there is something there. But this was a federal investigation. There was wire frauds of like $250 million. Like that, this is entirely different than that. And actually, Ballmer's not a founder, at least on paper anyway, of Aspiration. He's nothing more than a contributor. He put $50 million into it. And he technically probably got scammed out of money too. So that's kind of where it is, right? Like, but I think that when you start looking at it, like, and that's why that last paragraph, it said that Torre didn't take the time to find out how these scammers pulled off the scam, and that the default, that Ballmer is the bad guy, is going to backfire on him. There's more to it than that. And that needs to be brought up, and it's not being brought up enough. That this is much bigger than this, right? But I think that when you start to add the pieces together, as we've talked about up to this point, it doesn't look good regardless, right? He's putting that money in. Kawhi's getting paid for nothing. Why is Kawhi even getting paid for nothing regardless of the Clippers? I don't know, especially as part of like this big scheme. Also, if the hole in this is that if they're scamming money, they're probably still going to go under anyway because of legal issues or something like that. So you want Ballmer to funnel more money into the organization so they can take more of his money away? Like, that doesn't even make sense either to me. So really, I don't know that he's like the big bad wolf in all of this, but the whole thing is shady, right? The whole Aspire thing is shady.
It all is. I mean, this, and the Clipper statement said, it was a long campaign of market manipulation, and Steve Ballmer was defrauded here, and all of that. The bottom line for the end, because that, like you said, this is a much bigger thing, just the NBA. The bottom line for the NBA purposes, they just need to find out, like, was the 50 million Steve Ballmer put in, did that essentially just get rerouted to Kawhi Leonard? Yeah. Is that what happened? Or any variation of that? Or was Kawhi simply paid to play basketball for the Clippers and not actually promote this company? Like there was the report that the whistleblower, the source that was there, they were made anonymous, their voice and appearance was altered, but that said that they were told kind of specifically, like, this was to circumvent the NBA salary cap. If that is the bottom line, that from the NBA perspective, they have to figure out. But like you said, this is kind of the tip of the iceberg with the whole story. But for our purposes, what are these allegations true or not? Did Kawhi get paid for this by this company? Was money rerouted from Steve Ballmer and or the Clippers to Kawhi in a way to pay him in addition to his NBA salary? And if any of that is the case, if any of these rules were broken, then the NBA has to respond in kind, and they have to respond in the strongest ways. And I hope it's not happening. I hope that's not the way this goes. But ultimately, people want to know what could the punishment be? Draft picks, fines, suspensions. Kawhi's contract could even be voided. Like, that's, I don't know. I've seen a lot of people out there that think, oh, the NBA, it'll be a slap on the wrist. They won't do anything. I wouldn't be totally sure.
We've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, this is crazy.
Even the previous circumstance doesn't compare to this. But one thing I'll say, it doesn't really compare to this. It's different. The one thing I'll say is, while I did kind of agree a little bit with Mark with some of the argument there, like I just said, there are ways you can look at it and say, well, why this, why that? Part of this, like, if I could see a situation where through connections, he's like, hey, I want to use your company to be able to funnel money to Kawhi and have it look like it's on the up and up. And it's also interesting to me that they were a sponsor for the Clippers a few years ago. They were a sponsor. I believe they also had the naming rights to Intuit.
I think they still owe the Clippers money from that sponsorship.
And so it's funny that they're a sponsor, but at the same time, Ballmer's putting money into them. I wonder how common that actually is. Sorry, I have an alarm going.
Right. Right. I mean, that was That is a
There's
little
money
odd
going
too.
both ways. It's kind of like then Kawhi is just in this. Like, why is he getting paid? We don't know.
Well,
But
the irony of it all is that the dude who has been the poster child for load management
yeah.
is the guy that's getting paid to do nothing by this company. $28 million, Donnie. I mean, on the other hand, like if that contract was put in front of anybody, it doesn't have to be $28
No, we're
million. It
signing
could be
that.
$2,800.
Yeah.
Hey, you have to sign this, and if you don't want to do anything in here, no problem. You'll still get your money. Everybody's signing
no
that.
catch. There's no catch. Like what? Who's not doing it? That's why I like Stephen A went on ESPN and said and like kind of like just talked down on him for like that. But I'm like, wait a minute, but I would do the same thing. Now, morally, maybe if you know something's questionable about it, maybe you don't do it. But if it seems like it's on the up and up, then I think everybody would just take free money, basically. That's why I said I could understand, regardless of if he didn't promote them individually himself, because we know he doesn't use social media much. That's fine. But if they were using his likeness and just like he was all over all the marketing that they were doing,
Sure,
that would be a paper trail that you could say, okay, even though the fact still remains that he's probably still getting paid too much money for that, which could be a
at
problem.
least it's something
At
though,
least
and likenesses that there's value to that, absolutely.
Yeah, like at least there's something, but there's nothing. So that's where it's tricky, man. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I think this time around, personally, I don't want it to be the case, but I think this time around they will find something. It just seems like it's just too straightforward here. Even though there is, like I said, much more to it, but I just think that there's something here.
The Pablo Torres podcast said thousands of pages of documents.
That's insane.
Seven different witnesses. 7, like that's a lot.
You know how many people he ran through to get to those 7 too? That means there's more than that.
I like I said, I hope that, and I thought what was interesting was I forget who was having this conversation, but basically like it's now on the Clippers to prove their innocence. Like I know we say innocent until proven guilty, but like the case has kind of already been made against them.
Yeah.
Now it's on the Clippers to respond to that and prove that this stuff is not true. And I'm curious to see. They said provably, right? That was the word they used when this first came out, was provably, that they could prove it, that they didn't do anything wrong. Fantastic. I hope that's the case, but now they got to do it.
Yep, for sure.
All right, everybody. Kawhi Leonard maybe actually was supposed to get 48 million, which is much closer to the 50 million Bomber reportedly put in. Oh boy. Let us know your thoughts on this story, how this changes things, and what could be coming here for Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers. Don't forget to subscribe right here to the channel. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.